I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Thursday. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy out today. He'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. The headline out of the Denver Post: Colorado's appeals court questions Tina Peters' sentence, but appears skeptical. Her conviction should be overturned. She faced a 3-judge panel yesterday, and even the Denver Post reporting that they were taking her sentence, her 9-year prison sentence, as unfair seriously in its consideration. So, do you agree? I mean, there's lots of room here, right? We've had people that go, Tina Peters is a patriot that did nothing wrong. She was trying to expose fraud. She should have never been convicted. She is a hero. She should be released. You have people that go, she did commit a crime. She should be punished to the full extent of the law. She was tried by a jury of her peers, sentenced in her community. The 9 years is totally justified and fair. And then you got people in between that go, yeah, she might have done something wrong, but man, she's a gold star mom. Never had any violent crime. We're putting her in prison as long as a guy who drove a truck into 20 people killed 4 of them? Seriously? So throughout that entire spectrum, we'd like to have you join the conversation and be a part of it. Coming up this hour, Chris Murray, the preeminent election law attorney in Colorado with First and 14th Law, is going to join us to give us his analysis on yesterday's hearing before the Colorado Court of Appeals. Now is time for the news.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning on a Thursday. It is 31 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 60 today as the sun begins to rise. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, Colorado Rep. Jeff Crank on with Jeff last hour and talked about everything, including the predictable war on police, or ICE, in Minneapolis, and all the paid protesters doing their part to gin up the distractions and chaos for political benefit. And they also discussed Iran and the options DJT has in the effort to try and help the people against the regime.
The world would be better off if these mullahs were not in power. They were gone. They're terrible to the people of Iran, first and foremost. And so we want to help the good people who want freedom and liberty in Iran. And I think the president is doing that. I don't know what the tact will be, but he has lots of opportunities and lots of options at his disposal, including, everything from sanctions to, to cyber attacks to, military options that are out there. But we should not do what Barack Obama did and leave the Iranian people hanging there, because it's the future of the Middle East.
And what about Greenland? Strategically, it is vital for our defense, and Crank believes the president is doing the right thing, because the last thing you want is China in control of Greenland.
I don't think there's anything wrong. Let's say the president were to come up to the people of Greenland and say, look, how about we offer you this package and you vote on it and decide if you want to become part of the United States. So if they freely wanted to do that, what is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with doing that. And honestly, I think that's what the president's trying to do here is, try and put together an economic package that might benefit the people of Greenland.
I agree. Xcel Energy warning customers that it could shut off power to parts of northern Colorado starting tomorrow to reduce wildfire risk during dangerous weather. Colorado Director Andrew Holder.
In contact with our overhead facilities, it will stop the flow of electricity.
If implemented, a public safety power shutoff could affect around 9,000 customers in Larimer and Weld counties once again on Friday. The decision will be based on weather, wind, humidity, and fuel conditions.
In contact with our overhead facilities, it will stop the flow of electricity.
State regulators have now received over 600 complaints from consumers who say they put contaminated gas into their vehicles. The state has released an updated list of 46 stations that are believed to have received the contaminated fuel last week. Customers who pumped that gas into their vehicles should contact the station that they bought it from to begin the reimbursement process. Those stations will then work with HF Sinclair to compensate customers. More information about the affected stations and filing a consumer complaint is available on the Colorado Division of Oil and Public Safety website. 47 is set to meet with Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado at the White House today. The Nobel Peace Prize winner will sit down with DJT. The president has previously questioned Machado's support in her home country and has signaled closer ties with acting President Delcy Rodriguez, despite the fact that he is hosting Machado.
The meeting raises a significant question about who the Trump administration is backing in Venezuela. Since the U.S. operation to seize the president, Nicolas Maduro, the Trump administration has been backing his ally and former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez.
DPD asking for help locating 4 suspects wanted for attempted carjacking. Officers were called to the area of East Spear Boulevard and North Corona Street last Friday morning. Investigators say the 2 men and 2 women who thought to be between 22 and 29 years old attempted to take a vehicle from another person. Anyone with information can leave a tip with Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. Nuggets continue to take care of business without Nikola Jokic in the lineup as he rehabilitates and gets his knee healthy. They win 118-109 over the Mavericks in Dallas. Jamal Murray, 33 points. The Bills are banged up, including quarterback Josh Allen, as the Broncos await Buffalo coming up this Saturday. Today is a big practice day for both teams. They'll have walkthroughs tomorrow. Once again, 2:30 kickoff at Mile High in the first playoff game for the Broncos, the divisional round. The Bills coming off the victory over the Jags. The Giants, they look like they are finalizing a deal, reportedly, with former Ravens head coach John Harbaugh. 29 in Broomfield, 30 in Lone Tree, 31 in Denver. You're waking up with Jeff and Billy. Billy will be back tomorrow. It is Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It's going to be mostly sunny to partly sunny and mild, getting a little bit breezy, though, by afternoon. Highs upper 50s and low 60s. Windy and colder tonight. A cold front comes in tonight. Gusty northwest winds. Lows mid-20s. It'll be colder tomorrow. Upper 30s and low 40s with cold and gusty north and northwest winds. Colder Friday night, teens and low 20s. Partly cloudy and cool Saturday. Will stay in the mid to upper 30s. Down to the 20s Saturday night, warming back to the 50s for Sunday. Cooler Monday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Good Thursday morning to you on this January 15th, 2026. Billy's out today. He'll be back tomorrow. But joining me live in studios, Chris Murray. Chris is the preeminent election law attorney in Colorado. He works with First and 14th Law. Tina Peters was before an appellate court yesterday, the Colorado Court of Appeals, 3 judges, considering whether her 9-year sentence was unfair. Was it just too long? And I'm not a lawyer, and Kelly's not a lawyer. Bill's not a lawyer. So we bring in the pros to actually help us understand what's happening. Good morning, Mr. Murray. Thank you for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, morning, Jeff. I mean, Bill not being a lawyer doesn't stop him from pretending to be one.
Clip that. Clip that. Just have a button. But he did stay at a Holiday Inn, right? So,
right. I think Bill is the king of the Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. All right. So what was yesterday all about?
Well, so what yesterday was all about, it's all about Tina Peters' sentence, right? It's not about her conviction. Her lawyers are not seeking to get her conviction overturned. They're seeking to get her sentence reduced or her sentencing overturned and sent back down for resentencing. And the most serious argument that her lawyers raised, and I'm not trying to denigrate the other ones. I thought her lawyers did a great job in the oral argument, for the record. But the most serious argument, and it's the argument that I'm not surprised at all that the Court of Appeals seems to be latching onto, is, well, the way the district court judge pronounced the sentence, if everybody remembers, when he handed this down, right, and said, I'm going to give you the max, he said, I'm doing this, Tina, because you're a charlatan. You've been spreading lies about elections. You've been fostering distrust in our electoral system. Well, whether you like it or not, those are all opinions, right? And that's all those things are things that she said, and she's got a First Amendment right to say them. And you cannot enhance somebody's sentence for exercising their constitutional right to free speech.
Really? I understand the free speech, but it seems oftentimes, like in criminal courts, that if the person doesn't recant or say I'm sorry or I didn't do it, that they do get the max.
That's actually a really great question. So there is a difference between taking accountability, right? Refusal to take accountability, which is a legitimate factor, or a lack of remorse, which is a legitimate factor, and saying what you said 3 years ago before you did this crime or before you were convicted, I'm taking that into account in sentencing you. And that was the way the sentence came down in Mesa County. I think a fair listener, I think the judge out there, I think it's Matthew Barrett was the judge, the trial judge who sentenced Ms. Peters. And he didn't just say, you're not taking accountability now, which is totally fair. Hey, you've been convicted of a crime. You won't say you're sorry. You won't even admit that you did it. You won't take accountability. I'm going to take that into account in sentencing you. That's legit. But in saying, actually, part of the reason you need to have a harsher sentence is I need to deter people from saying the sorts of things that you've said. That's not something a court can do.
Wow. That's Chris Murray, First and 14th Law. So, Chris, what could the appeals court do here? What do you think they're likely to do as a court watcher?
Well, I mean, so I got to say first thing, and I would venture that Ms. Peters' legal team would agree. I think they got a pretty decent panel at the Court of Appeals, particularly the lead of the panel, the guy who sits right in the middle and kind of runs the argument. That's Judge Craig Welling. Judge Welling, I think, is one of the truly, just really, really sharp guys that have gotten on the court in the last decade. And I mean, he always shows up to arguments prepared. I've never seen him, and my firm, we do kind of politically charged cases all the time. We never see his politics come through. In fact, I'd be at a loss to tell you what they are, and that's used to be able to say that about everybody. Who's on the Court of Appeals, you can definitely say it about him, and he was the one who was expressing the most concern on this First Amendment question. So I think they drew a pretty good panel here. What they could do, they could say, well, obviously they could say, never mind, no problem, sentence stays. All right, which would be an affirmance. If they reversed, they could potentially say, we think the sentence should be X. But courts of appeals don't typically do that. What they would ordinarily do is say, hey, look, we're just concerned. This sentence looks like it was imposed partially on the basis of protected First Amendment speech. That's not a legitimate factor. We're going to go ahead and send it back down for resentencing. We're vacating the sentence, and she has to be resentenced, let's say, within 90 days. And judge, you can't take that into account when you resentence her. They could also potentially say it's got to go to a different judge when it goes back down for the sentencing.
Wow. So, I mean, it's across the spectrum. Could Tina be out tomorrow if the appeals court decided to?
They could. Yeah. I don't think that's terribly likely. Because, again, Ms. Peters' team is not saying she didn't commit the crime, right? They're saying, they're saying she shouldn't have been convicted, right? But what they're saying is, look, like, we think the sentence is way too harsh, all right? And sentencing is where judges have just about the most discretion. You commit a crime, as long as it's within what the law prescribes, judges can basically do whatever they want unless they violate the Constitution.
And that is what's at stake here. We're talking with Chris Murray. Chris serves with First and 14th Law. He's Colorado's preeminent election law attorney. Chris, I want to go back a little bit to the beginning of this because you have fought lots of battles over particular elections, right? You've gone into court like the night of the election. I find the whole Tina Peters case a little wild because people seem offended that somebody would challenge an election. That happens regularly, but Tina's case was a little different. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, what the facts are here, right? And again, these are what I'll go off of is the facts that were accepted by the court, right? So, Tina, I think, like many people after the 2020 election, right, was concerned that there had been some sort of widespread fraud and that potentially, if you'll remember, right, there was talk about, and by the way, for the record, I think this talk is crazy. I've got to say that. I think it is absolutely nuts, and I've seen nothing to support it, okay, about the algorithm moving votes. There were problems in the 2020 election, especially with states that had never had mail ballot voting, like Pennsylvania, having massive levels of mail ballot voting because of COVID. So there were legitimate issues with the 2020 election, but the idea that the machines were moving votes into other columns, I haven't seen any evidence of it. Tina Peters, like many people, had concerns about that at the time. And what she apparently did was get an associate of Mike Lindell, who was also concerned about that and who claimed to be an expert in election software, and said, hey, look, they're doing this. Every election, you have to do an update to the election software. It's called a trusted build. Okay, and the Secretary of State oversees this in all the counties, and it's basically to make sure that the machines are counting our paper ballots. In Colorado, we all vote on paper, are counting the paper ballots accurately, and that everything that's going into the machine for the ballot style is on the up and up. So she said, let's take a picture of the machine before this, with the software system before it and after it. Basically, maybe we can catch Dominion, right, or the Secretary of State or somebody else. Dominion's the company that makes the voting machines, red-handed in manipulating the software within the machines. So in order to do that, first she asked the Secretary of State and said, hey, I would like to have an observer present for this. The Secretary of State said, no, that's a confidential process. We're not allowing somebody who's not on your staff in there. So then she took another employee's security badge, used that to let this person in, represented that they were a member of her staff, and gave that person access to the terminal to take images of the system before and after. I think even like that's not good. You shouldn't use a badge to let somebody in who's not supposed to be there. I'm not condoning that. But so far, I think a lot of people would say, well, sort of paranoid, but whatever. Then some of the BIOS passwords for the Dominion voting systems in Mesa County showed up online on the dark web. With those passwords, you could have by the way, I should say partial passwords. You could have a major breach into the voting systems if somebody got physical access to them. And if you'll remember, this is this huge irony here. I think I was on your show about this, okay? The Secretary of State leaked an Excel spreadsheet of like all of those for the entire state like a year later and said, oh, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. So the hypocrisy here is pretty serious. But posting that stuff online, that's where I think a lot of election administrators and a lot of folks who do this for a living said, my goodness, like that's a bridge too far. And that is, I think, what drew the prosecution on her.
That's Chris Murray. He's with First and 14th Law. We're talking about the oral arguments that were made yesterday before the Colorado Court of Appeals regarding Tina Peters' sentence. there's a lot here. The president's involvement, Jared Polis's involvement as well. There's a lot of legal wrangling. Let's just get purely political, because this would be Jared Polis's decision at this point, right? To commute a sentence. It would be based on political.
If the sentence is still there, as you noted earlier, right? If the Court of Appeals just tosses it or sends it back down and the district court says, time served, see you around, right? Then there's nothing for Governor Polis to commute.
But he could commute, and there's a legal angle that President Trump's exploring as to whether or not election that includes, this is my reading of it, federal candidates would put that as a federal thing that he could pardon.
And that was, some of those arguments were raised by Ms. Peters' lawyers at the Court of Appeals yesterday.
Because traditionally, only a president can pardon things that have to do with federal law.
They can only pardon violations of federal law, correct?
Right.
Yep.
So, and that's why they prosecuted Tina on state issues, in part, I think, to kind of keep it out of the federal hands, so that Democrats had control.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry to talk over you, Jeff. And frankly, that's because there's just not a whole lot of substantive federal law about the nuts and bolts of how you run an election, right? There's not a lot of federal criminal law dealing with elections. So if you're trying, which by the way I think is the big weakness in that argument, that it's not like there's some federal body of law out there where we can get somebody for messing around with an election under federal law if it involves federal candidates. If that body of law existed, there might be a stronger argument that, hey, in a federal election with federal candidates, maybe that is a federal legal violation, and maybe that pardon ought to slop over a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think Jared Polis commutes the sentence of Tina Peters?
Well, so Governor Polis, he's an interesting cat for a lot of reasons. He sure seems to be thinking about it, and as you've noted, he's commuted all sorts of other sentences for absolutely heinous crimes, and
you got a call from Kim Kardashian. That helps.
Absolutely. Sure.
Even gay men can't say no to Kim Kardashian's request.
Apparently not. Yeah, but I think Jared Polis is big about. He likes to appear, and I don't want to. I'm actually not trying to damn him with this, but he's big on, look at me, look at how fair I am, and I think he says, well, shoot, she's 70. She's in the age range that we've considered this before. She meets a bunch of my other criteria that my office has said. Maybe I've got to put my money where my mouth is. And Jared Polis, for all of his failings, I think one of his strengths is when he gets stubbornly attached to a position, he's willing to see it through even if his own party hates it. Remember...
school choice is an example.
School choice is an example. COVID, right? He wasn't great on COVID, but he was the first Democratic governor to lift all the ridiculous draconian restrictions, especially on churches. And he was proven right on that. But the heat that he took from his left, obviously he was taking heat from us on the right because those restrictions should never have been there in the first place. But living in his political world, I think part of the reason, there's a lot of reasons why he won't be president, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah, do you think he runs? What do you think is the future of Jared Polis?
Oh man, I did not expect to talk about this when I got on here. I don't know. I hope it's retirement. I hope it's a pleasant retirement.
As he commutes Tina Peters on his way out. Well, it seems like the pressure's working. It's building. President Trump is keeping us on the forefront. And like you, I have not seen the evidence that. The way I explain it is there's two ways to rig a football game. One is to just adjust the scoreboard, right? Oh, you got 7 points you never actually got.
Which is what the whole algorithm thing was about.
Yeah. The other one is to write the rules in such a way that it favors the way you play the game.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. Yep.
And I think that's what Democrats do. That's why they love mail-in ballots, right? We're just going to carpet bomb the entire state with ballots. Lo and behold, look, now we're winning by big measures.
Yeah, and we're going to do same-day voter registration or automatic voter registration, both of which we have here in Colorado. If you want to, if you're concerned about election integrity and you want to talk about those things, I'm all ears. I'm not just all ears. I'll probably be like, you're right.
But I guess part of the critique I have with the way the media treated Tina Peters, and I do think she broke the law with what she did with the passes. I don't think she should have spent time in prison. I think it should have been probation at best. But there's this notion of like election denier. She's an election denier. And I go, well, if you've been in campaigns, there's legal battles that take place in just about every election.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, look, like, show me an election that is close enough.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and a lot of your listeners are really smart, okay? They get it. If you have, in fact, folks who have been in Colorado for a while, they will remember long ago, right, when Boulder was still electing Republican congressmen. Remember Bob Beaupre, right, when he beat Mike Feely by, like, what was it, like a couple hundred votes in a congressional district. It was so close that they both went back for congressional orientation. This is in the early 2000s, I think. And you get elections that close with enough votes cast, I'm sorry, that election is probably closer to a tie than anybody wants to admit because of just the number of mistakes that can happen, let alone if there's a thumb on the scale on one side or the other.
That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. He's Colorado's preeminent election law attorney, giving us an analysis of yesterday's oral arguments before the Colorado Court of Appeals. Will continue. Plus, another one's going to jump in here. George Brauchler's got a lawsuit against Polis that he just filed last night. He's going to give us the latest on this as well. So much happening this morning on the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's talk the gun room, folks. I love working with Wayne at the gun room. This guy loves the Lord, loves this country, supports the Constitution. And when many others, and I don't blame them, but when many other gun shop owners are heading for greener pastures where they just don't have so much government intervention, Wayne and the gun room is sticking around. So those guys that are willing to put up with all the craziness and all the regulations and the oversight, because we know that progressives only really want to stop legal gun owners from owning guns. They don't care about the government owning guns or criminals. That he's putting up with all this. That's why you got to go visit the gun room and support them. They're Denver's oldest firearms dealer since 1982. When you walk in, you feel it. Real wood, real craftsmanship, a shop that actually looks like a gun store, less plastic, and more tradition. They buy, sell, and consign any and all firearms, from antique and vintage to hunting and tactical, and they do something the big box stores never will. They work closely with families who've lost a loved one and need help handling a gun collection with care and respect, making sure you get a fair price for all those guns. Inventory changes daily with over 1,000 firearms in stock, so if you're thinking about buying, especially with new restrictive laws coming, act now. Support local, support family-owned, support freedom. Visit denvergunroom.com or call 303-237-1300. 303-237-1300, denvergunroom.com. That's the Gun Room, a Colorado original. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts and our conversation with George Brauchler, Chris Murray. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show, Denver's news talk leader, 710 KNUS. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy out today. He'll be back tomorrow. We're talking Tina Peters and the arguments before the Colorado Court of Appeals yesterday. And one of the questions I asked Chris Murray, live in studio with us, Colorado's preeminent election law attorney with First and 14th Law, is whether or not Polis was going to pardon him. And then what Polis is going to do after the governorship. And Jason in Denver texting in with the best text of the morning so far. Well, Polis is going to join the village people. They can have a policeman, a cowboy, a construction worker, an Indian, a Navy soldier, and now a governor. Could you see Jared Polis and Donald Trump dancing together?
Actually,
that might bring our country together.
It might bring our country together, right? In utter revulsion, like just mutual, right?
We've gone too far.
Everybody
that
looking
becomes
at it.
The moment we've deemed we've come too far. Well, we've got some breaking news. Joining us now online or on the phone line is George Brauchler, District Attorney for Judicial District 23, doing an absolutely fantastic job launching a new lawsuit against Jared Polis. George Brauchler, good morning. Thank you for joining the Jeff and Bill Show with Chris Murray.
Thank you for having me on. Two quick things. If you could get that power ballad Jeff and Bill thing to say vote Republican and blast it out in November, we'd win every race, because that thing kicks around my head like it's daddy needs crack. You know what I mean? Like I can't stop humming this thing. And then the other part is, there's a weird sort of symmetry between this show at the moment and Cheers in this way. You have on me, who I feel is much more like Norm from Cheers, and then you have in studio Cliff Clavin there, who has at his disposal every legal fact available. Like, Jeffy, a little known fact here, the judge could simply lower the sentence on their own. And I'm like, I'll have another beer. You know what I mean? Like, I just have the one-line quip. So he's got the substance. I've got the quips.
Brilliant analysis. I love it. George Brauchler. All right. What are you taking Polis on about?
So we filed a lawsuit. And by the way, it's so great you have Chris in here, because he knows the First Amendment better than anybody. And it involves the First Amendment. But the gist of it is this. There is... look, I have an obligation. Darren Weekly, who's part of the suit, has an obligation to protect the community, and that includes people that are even here illegally. And one of the things that happens is there is a criminal element out there that preys on known illegal aliens because they think they're never going to report, because reporting will bring them into a place where they could be deported, put them at risk for it.
I mean, that explains the Aurora apartment complex issue right there.
Of course
they
it
knew
does.
They were illegal, and they went around extorting them.
That's right. So Congress, years ago, created a special kind of visa. It's called a U visa, and there's only 10,000 of them a year. Probably not nearly enough given where we're at with illegal immigration, but there's 10,000 a year where someone like me or Darren or a chief of police can sign a specific document and certify it, sign it under penalty of perjury, and basically going to immigration and saying, this person is a valuable witness or victim in a case for us. They are cooperative. Could you please give them some temporary legal status while we continue prosecuting the case? Well, in 2021, Senator Julie Gonzalez, who refers to herself as Senadora Julie Gonzalez, who hates the idea that there are borders anywhere, spearheaded a law that Polis signed that gets enforced by Weiser, and we've seen he's willing to sue law enforcement to achieve political ends. And this law says, hey, if someone comes in and they say they're a victim of crime and there's some evidence of it, you have to presume they're cooperative unless you have evidence that they're not, and you absolutely must, George, Darren, Chief of Police, sign off on this form so that they have a chance to stay in the country for really no legitimate reason. Here's the problem it creates, Jeff, is that there are a bunch of factors I could consider, like maybe somebody reported a crime that's so old it can't be prosecuted. This statute says you don't get to consider that. All you get to consider is, was someone the victim of a crime, and did they say they're willing to cooperate, or do you have any evidence that they won't? And then you have to sign off on this form. And there's just no chance I'm going to be compelled to speak through my signature over the possible penalty of perjury or some other certification because the Gold Dome says so. It's a federal form with federal implications, and the state, I don't think, gets to tell me what to do.
That's George Brauchler, District Attorney of Judicial District 23, talking to us about a lawsuit against Jared Polis regarding these U visas. I mean, there's only 10,000. So here's what it seems like to me. It seems like what progressives are doing here, what they always do, is find something that was initially done out of compassion, exploit it to try to drive their political ends, and now they're forcing you to comply with that. Is that a fair analysis of what's happening here?
100%. They have taken a valuable and scarce tool for public safety, and they've turned it into a golden ticket to hang out in America. I'll give you an example. This is in the lawsuit. There is someone, an attorney, an immigration attorney, who applied on behalf of their client. Their client was the daughter of a misdemeanor domestic violence victim, wait for it, 17 years ago. And they have found a way to keep renewing, or at least just staying in the country, these U visas. They won another one. And it's like, what's the point of that? The case is over. There was a conviction, there was a sentence over a decade and a half ago. What kind of game are we playing? This statute would say, George, you just have to sign it, because they were cooperative in the past and they're the victim of a crime. Do it. Another dude said, I'm the victim of domestic violence from 2022. Maybe true, but the statute of limitations has run. I can't do anything with that guy or that case. And under those circumstances, why am I being compelled to say, immigration, you should let this guy stay in the country? He can do nothing for us.
Now, this is a lawsuit that was filed by you and Darren Weekly, Sheriff of Douglas County, yesterday, I think last night.
Right.
Any response from the Polis-Weiser administration?
No, not yet. It's too soon. It'll be assigned, and Chris probably has a better understanding of this than I do. It'll be assigned to a special unit in the AG's office, and we reached out to them after we filed it and gave them a courtesy heads up, hey, this thing is coming and all that. And I think they have a long time, maybe 2 months, to respond to this thing, and it'll work its way through the court. We filed it in federal court, U.S. District Court. They assigned a judge and a magistrate, I think randomly on it. I don't know who either of these two people are. Chris probably, has seen them over the weekend because he's so well connected. But I don't have more than that other than to say I like this case for us. I like our odds. And if this is the first best opportunity to start pushing back on a state whose overreach tries to get between us and the federal government, I'm all about it.
Right. Chris Murray's live in studio with us as well. He's with First and 14th Law. Chris, give me your analysis of this lawsuit.
Yeah, well, I actually had a chance to take a look at these pleadings last night. And, because when you file in federal court, it immediately shows up on a system that's accessible to lawyers. It's called PACER for the federal government. And it's pretty interesting. George, when I see your name on a lawsuit, I'm always wondering if you're going to be on the other side of the V, but this time you were the plaintiff. So that's nice.
Usually I am.
But, so what I think is so first thing, I think that this lawsuit's really interesting. I agree with George. Just obviously it's his lawsuit. He did a great job articulating what the basis of it is. I think it's substantive. What's really interesting here, though, George, is that if I'm not mistaken, you've got a claim here not just as the elected DA, but you've got a claim in your individual capacity for violation of your personal civil rights for compelled speech. Is that right?
I do. That First Amendment thing, and you know it better than anyone else, there are some protections for public officials, but there's a lot more protections for private individuals. And I feel like I'm the one that's at risk, right? Like if Phil Weiser decides to enforce this statute against me, the office of the district attorney doesn't go to jail or get fined. It's me. I get it.
Yeah, no, that's totally. And I thought that was really well laid out in the papers. And candidly, I'll say this, I'm a lawyer. I knew nothing about this U visa program. It sure seems to me that it looks like Congress passed it in the year 2000, and the number of U visas available really has never been adjusted. Unfortunately, our population of illegals in this country has been adjusted upwards significantly over the last 20 years. And George is right that, just because you're in the country illegally doesn't mean it should be free rein on criminal elements within the illegal community, right, to extort you or predate upon you. It's part of the reason why illegals shouldn't be allowed in the country, so they can't be put in that position. But if it happens, we have to be able to enforce our laws, and we should be able to keep witnesses here for some short period of time in order to allow them to cooperate if they're willing to do that.
I find this interesting. I mean, the 10,000 seems like, well, I guess if you're a sanctuary state like California, you're letting anybody in anyways, but 10,000 people seems like something California could blow through in 5 minutes.
Yeah, if California was serious about enforcing the law, yeah.
Right.
Great point. That's a great point.
So, George Brauchler, Darren Weekly suing Jared Polis, Phil Weiser for essentially forcing these guys to sign off on these U visas. I mean, so the pressure's coming from these guys. Are they calling you? Are they sending emails? Or is there a notification system that says, guys, sign off on this as a U visa? And if not, the state may process. And the state can force a federal U visa signature?
That's what they're trying to do. But here's how it works: is we get applications, and so does Darren, office separate from each other. And sometimes they'll apply to each one of us, trying to figure out who's going to sign this thing. But at the end of the year, there's reporting requirements that we have to give to the state that says if we denied any applications, why we denied them. When we deny the application, we have to give a written explanation to the applicant themselves, which I've done. So there's two vehicles. The state can become aware of it because of the reporting requirement, or a disgruntled illegal immigrant who didn't get the golden ticket to stay here, they can go to the state and say, hey, Brauchler and Weekly have screwed this thing up. Go get them. Go force them to do this thing or take some sort of legal action against them. Those are the two vehicles that they can do to get that.
Good night. Wow. I mean, they really do find any angle to keep an illegal immigrant here, don't they?
They don't care about the justice piece of this thing. This is all about keeping as many people here as they possibly can for as long as they can. And when it comes at the expense of public safety and justice for us here, it doesn't make any sense. And you can see if this thing were to catch fire, there'd be a ton of actual victims of crime who might just wait out the statute of limitations so that they can come in and say, my husband abused me. The cops will go, there's nothing to investigate here because the clock has run. And then they get to stay here with their abusive husband because nobody's working to deport them. And law enforcement can't reach out to ICE and say, hey, we found a domestic abuser. We can't prosecute him, but he's here illegally. Go get him. They can't do that because we have another statute, as we've seen, that Phil's willing to enforce by filing lawsuits against cops. They've created a circumstance where it's see no evil, hear no evil, and maybe evil should be substituted with illegal immigration. Hey, I got a quick thought, by the way, on the Tina Peters thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Best guess, and I think Chris is right, best guess is he does commute the sentence, not pardon. I don't think there'll ever be a pardon. I think he commutes the sentence, but I don't think he commutes it down to get out of jail right now, but he'll do the functional equivalent. And as you know, because we have one of the weakest, most convoluted sentencing structures in America, and that's the truth, she would only end up serving probably a third of her sentence before she reached parole eligibility. And so when he cuts that sentence down, he moves that 1/3 down too. And so my best guess is he commutes the sentence down to a number where she doesn't get out right away, but she's instantly eligible for community corrections on her way to being put right back out into the community.
That seems to maybe scratch that libertarian itch that Jared Polis sometimes gets. I mean, I hate when people are like, wow, he's the most libertarian governor we've ever had. No, he's not. But
I hate when you talk about Jared Polis scratching an itch.
Clip that. All right, George Brauchler, we're going to continue to watch this court case. Thank you, brother, for all you do. I often talk about George in political circles because what makes a good statesman in my mind is somebody that finds ways to influence even if the most direct path isn't there, right? Here's a guy that went out there, challenged Phil Weiser. The voters were dumb enough to put Phil Weiser in, and George just didn't saunter off. He finds ways to make his community better, even if it's not the most direct route. And I think that's the mark of a statesman. George Brauchler, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time this morning.
Hey, and George, I'm gonna work on my speeding problem down there.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Chris. I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for covering this.
George Brauchler, District Attorney, Judicial District 23. All right, we'll continue. Chris Murray's live in studio with us. First and 14th Law, talking Tina Peters, talking Jared Polis, and all the rest. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, Denver's News Talk Leader, 710 KNUS. Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy's out today. He'll be back tomorrow. But we're talking basically all things court-related around Tina Peters. Court watchers yesterday watching the Colorado Court of Appeals as judges were considering Tina Peters' argument that the 9-year prison sentence was just unfair, too long, too extreme. And they took it seriously, as they should. Jared Polis also considering possibly commuting the sentence of Tina Peters. I think it'll come. I think the pressure's working. Keep it up, you patriots. Whether or not you agree that Tina Peters' conviction was right or wrong, 9 years for a Gold Star mom who's never done a violent thing in her life is just crazy. In a state that allows child rapists to get probation. Either we're serious about law or we're not. And in this state, it's only political opponents that get serious punishments. It's time to commute her sentence. And I think you can still hold her accountable for what she did. So we'll continue to watch that. Live in studio with us is Chris Murray, First and 14th Law. Chris, you're very active in lots of cases out there. Really, Colorado's preeminent First Amendment and election law attorney. We got a big decision to make in November with regards to Attorney General.
Yeah.
Right? Phil Weiser seems to hang his hat on how many times he's sued Donald Trump. I can't really point to anything he made Colorado better with, but, you know, he's on like lawsuit number 50. Do you think voters in Colorado are getting tired of that type of political position with regards to Attorney General? Or do you think they'll go, Trump, the best fighter we can get. Let's put him in. Let's put somebody in that can fight directly against him. Drenna Griswold will be that person.
All right. So, first thing, whatever you think of Secretary of State Griswold, she is not going to be, if you're a Democrat, she is not going to be nearly as effective as an attorney general as Phil Weiser, because she's just not nearly the lawyer that Phil Weiser is.
Well, a 9-0 slap down from the U.S. Supreme Court, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's right. That is hard to do these days in a political case, by the way. Like, people just forget that.
Dude, Ketanji Brown Jackson's like, girl, something ain't right in your mind.
Again, and I actually think I was on your show, or maybe it was somewhere else, but where I said, look, like, even Ketanji Brown Jackson, who studied... Literally, like, she studied Civil War Reconstruction law and the 14th Amendment. That's like her academic specialty. She had to be like, that's not how any of this works. Like, I wish it did, but that's not how it works. That's pretty bad. But back to it, look, unfortunately, my sense of the politics here in Colorado, like a lot of Colorado's a blue state right now, there is on both sides, but let's focus on the blue states. There is a hunger for just adversity with the federal government. It's what got that poor woman up in Minnesota killed, right, during that ICE arrest. And there's this almost, this desire to show that, like, hey, look, like, I want somebody to fight, right, so that I can feel good about myself. I don't understand that. I think it's a really unhealthy place for our society, but I worry that is where a lot of our Democratic friends are.
I think that's a great analysis. Chris Murray, thank you, sir. First and 14th Law. Go to First and 14th Law for all your First Amendment election law needs.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. We got Dave Oleski, DEA, up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show, Denver's news talk leader, 710 KNUS.